You've heard it before, your hamstrings are tight. And maybe? Dr. Nicholas Mercer, the theme park therapist with You Improve PT. If you don't frequently stretch your hamstrings might be tight. And sometimes tight hamstrings can contribute to lower back pain, especially when you are taking tens of thousands of steps at the theme parks every single day you're there. I do have a video that shows you how to stretch your hamstrings in the parks, which I will link to in a card above. However, sometimes you need a little more than stretching. Even though stretching can be very beneficial in helping a muscle work properly, sometimes the hamstrings are not only what we call quote-unquote tight, they're dysfunctional, which basically means they're not working properly. And when a muscle isn't working properly, it can't do its job. It can't work to control your hips. And if your hips aren't controlled, we get some instability and all that stress goes right to your lower back. So even if we're stretching, what can we do at the parks to make sure that the hamstrings are working properly? So we want to make sure that we're getting some activation and basically getting the muscle to work in a lengthened position. Because you're going to be walking around the parks all day, if those hamstrings aren't working properly, whether that be if they're not getting the proper activation during the walking movement, or if they're so restricted that they just stay short the whole time, they can contribute to your lower back pain. So here's what you're going to do in addition to stretching your hamstrings throughout the day at the parks. And I'll show you from the side so you can get a better view. So the first thing you're going to do is stand up, again, like we start everything, nice and tall, right? So tall spine, pull the belly button in, okay? So from here, you want to keep your knees pretty much straight. They can bend just a tiny bit. And you're going to bring your chest forward and your hips back. Okay, and you'll notice here my lower back is working. Okay, so we're getting some activation through the lower back, pulling in the belly button here, and we want to keep going into that movement, keeping that lower back contract and the lower stomach contracted until we feel a stretch in the hamstrings. Okay, now I say a stretch, but since we're holding ourselves in this position, we're actually getting the hamstrings to work in a lengthened position. So we're getting them to work properly again. And from here, you'll use those hamstrings to pull you back up into a standing position. So ending nice and tall like we did before. Okay? We're going to do that a few times, leaning forward, letting those hamstrings lengthen, but still controlling this movement, holding here for 5 to 10 seconds. And then slowly controlling that back up, okay? So throughout your day, you just kind of do this while you're waiting in line in order to get those hamstrings working, in addition to getting the lower back and the lower abdominals to activate and stabilize your spine here, okay? So do sets of 5 to 10 of those throughout your day, in order to get those hamstrings working, and I'm a little out of breath just from doing that, to get those hamstrings working properly and stabilizing your hip, taking some of the stress off of your lower back. And that should alleviate a lot of the pain that you may be having in your hips or lower back. It will improve your overall experience because pain is not magical.